Elias Carter never expected his life to change on a day that was supposed to be boring. The Galactic Assembly Hall was built to impress, not to comfort. Its ceiling stretched like an artificial sky, filled with slow-moving lights that represented distant stars. Rows of floating platforms held delegates from hundreds of species. Some were tall and scaled, others small and wrapped in soft, glowing suits. The humans were seated near the back, not important enough to be close to the center. Humanity was new to the galactic community. They were not feared. They were not respected. They were tolerated. Elias stood behind the human delegation, hands folded behind his back, wearing a simple dark uniform with no medals. He was a security officer, not a politician. His job was to watch, listen, and make sure his people survived the meeting without offending anyone powerful. At the center of the hall sat Queen Zyra of the Valari Dominion. Even from a distance, she commanded attention. She was tall, her posture straight and unyielding. Her skin shimmered like polished obsidian, marked with faint silver lines that shifted as she moved. A crown of living crystal rested on her head, glowing softly. Her eyes were sharp, ancient, and tired. The Valari were one of the strongest empires in known space. They ruled through strict order and tradition. Their queen was not just a ruler, but a symbol of stability. If she fell, entire star systems would burn. Elias knew this because he studied everything before coming here. Humans survived by learning faster than everyone else. The assembly droned on with speeches and formal statements. Species argued politely about trade routes, borders, and shared threats. Elias scanned the crowd, his eyes moving slowly, carefully. He did not trust peace that came too easily. Then he felt it, a subtle wrongness, a delay in the air, a movement that did not match the rhythm of the hall. Elias turned his head slightly and saw it, a small hovering drone, black and smooth, drifting just above the floor. It was not marked with any delegation symbols. It moved too quietly, too confidently. His heart began to race. Valari guards stood near Queen Zyra, tall and armored, their weapons powerful but slow to activate. They relied on intimidation and technology. Elias relied on instinct. The drone stopped. Time seemed to slow. Elias moved. He broke formation and sprinted forward, boots pounding against the polished floor. Voices shouted behind him, confused and angry. The drone's core began to glow, a sharp white light building rapidly. Elias threw himself toward the central platform. The explosion was not large, but it was focused. Energy ripped outward like a blade. Elias collided with Queen Zyra's platform, grabbing the edge and pulling himself up with strength born of desperation. The shockwave slammed into his back, sending pain through his body. The queen stumbled, her guards reacting too late. Elias wrapped an arm around her and twisted, shielding her with his own body as they hit the floor. Silence followed. Then chaos. Alarms screamed. Guards rushed in from every direction. Weapons were raised. Delegates fled or froze in fear. Smoke filled the air. Elias lay on the floor, breathing hard, pain burning through his side. He forced himself to move, pushing up onto one knee. His ears rang, but he was alive. Queen Zyra stared at him. Her eyes were wide, her pupils narrow, not fear, shock. "You," she said, her voice calm but sharp, cutting through the noise. "Human." "Stand down," Queen Zyra said. The guards hesitated. No one questioned her, but they had never been told to stand down from a threat so close to the throne. "He saved my life," she continued. "Lower your weapons." That was the first mistake, according to Valari tradition. Later, when the hall was sealed and the threat eliminated, Elias was escorted to a secure chamber. Not a prison, but not a guest room either. The walls were smooth metal, the light soft but unyielding. Queen Zyra entered alone. She dismissed the guards with a gesture. The doors closed behind her. "You broke formation," she said. "You touched the royal platform. You shielded my body with your own. Do you know what you have done, human? Maybe humans are different." Valari law did not allow refusal of a royal decree. Queen Zyra's expression changed, not to anger but to curiosity. You refuse a queen. Queen Zyra turned away, walking toward the window that showed her homeworld far below. You are strange, she said softly. Your species is weak, divided, and small, yet you act without fear. I will announce the union. Sounds about right. Then I guess I'll do what humans do best. Humans were still considered a minor power, curious but fragile. To bind a royal throne to them was seen as reckless, even insulting. To the Valari people, it was shocking beyond words. Their queen had chosen an outsider, a soft-skinned being with no noble blood, no ancient lineage, and no understanding of Valari law. Elias Carter learned about the announcement while sitting on a medical platform, a band of glowing fabric wrapped around his ribs. A Valari healer adjusted the field around him and spoke in a neutral tone. You are now under royal protection. Leaving the system without permission is forbidden. Escorted by silent guards, Elias was taken through long corridors of dark crystal and living metal. The Valari Palace was massive, built into a mountain that rose above glowing seas. Every wall carried history. Every step reminded him that he did not belong here. Servants bowed deeply as he passed. Others stared openly. Some showed fear. Some showed anger. He was led to a chamber prepared for him. It was large, elegant, and very empty. No personal items, no weapons, no windows that opened, a guest room, or a cage. Elias sat on the edge of the sleeping platform and let out a long breath. He had faced pirates, hostile environments, and broken ships in deep space. None of that felt as dangerous as this. Across the palace, Queen Zyra faced her own storm. The High Council gathered in a circular chamber, their voices sharp and controlled. Tall Valari elders stood in ritual armor, their silver markings glowing brighter with emotion. A human cannot stand beside the throne, one counselor said. It weakens our image. Zyra stood at the center, unmoving. Our image means nothing if I am dead, she replied. That human acted while your guards hesitated. Then he will teach us something, Zyra said calmly, or we will teach him. What if I say something wrong? Where I come from, marriage isn't a political weapon. Confusion, calculated silence. Elias did not kneel. He stood straight, hands relaxed at his sides, meeting the gaze of alien rulers without flinching. That single act unsettled many more than words ever could. In the days that followed, Elias learned quickly or not at all. He studied Valari customs, not to imitate them but to understand them. He learned when silence was respect and when it was submission. He learned that Valari power flowed through rigid hierarchy and breaking it was considered dangerous. So he did something unexpected. He listened. He spoke to guards as equals, asked their names, learned their stories. He thanked servants instead of ignoring them. He asked engineers about systems instead of ordering changes. At first they thought it was a trick, then they realized it was simply human. Queen Zyra watched from a distance. She saw how her soldiers straightened when Elias entered a room, how advisors began to speak more openly when he was present. He did not command loyalty, he earned it. Not everyone was pleased. A Valari noble named Threx, known for his influence and ambition, began to gather support. He smiled in public and whispered in shadowed halls. The human weakens the throne, he said softly. He will bring chaos. You will fall. Queen Zyra received reports of his actions and said nothing. Then the first real test came. A Valari border fleet failed to respond to a routine check-in. Panic spread quickly. Enemies watched for weakness. The council demanded immediate action. Elias studied the data quietly, then spoke. Your command structure is too rigid, he said. When one node fails, everything waits. The issue was not attack but miscommunication. Human logic and Valari strength solved it together. The galaxy noticed. Whispers spread. The human was not a weakness. He was a variable. As Elias returned to his chamber that night, he paused at the balcony and looked out over the glowing world below. He did not feel like a prince. He felt like a man standing on unstable ground. Queen Zyra joined him silently. "You are changing my people," she said. "I'm just being myself," Elias replied. She studied him. "That may be the most dangerous thing of all." Across distant systems, rival powers watched the Valari dominion carefully. Reports flowed in about the human consort who walked without fear, who spoke to soldiers like friends, who questioned traditions that had stood for thousands of cycles. To some, he was an insult. To others, an opportunity. The first sign of trouble did not come with weapons or threats. It came with silence. Trade routes that normally flowed smoothly began to slow. Neutral systems delayed responses. Long-standing agreements were suddenly under review. No one accused the Valari directly, but the message was clear. The galaxy was testing them. Queen Zyra stood before a massive star map in the strategy hall, her expression calm but focused. Advisors spoke in measured tones, offering familiar solutions, shows of force, formal warnings, rigid responses. Elias stood slightly behind her, listening. "These delays are coordinated," he said finally. "They're not random. Humans survive by noticing small changes. This is pressure, not chaos. Use smaller trade partners. Open limited access to human routes. Share responsibility instead of control." Trade resumed through new paths. Smaller systems felt included instead of dominated. Human diplomats acted as bridges, translating not just language but intent. The pressure eased, but not for long. Threx watched all of this with growing anger. From his private chamber, he observed reports and listened to whispers. Support gathered around him quietly. Traditionalists. Those who believed the throne was being reshaped without consent. "The queen listens too much to the human," one follower said. "She has grown flexible," another added, disgusted. Threx's silver markings glowed faintly. "Flexibility can be broken." Panic rippled outward. This time, rival fleets moved closer, pretending concern. The council demanded immediate military response. Queen Zyra turned to Elias. "Your thoughts?" "If outsiders did this, they'd leave traces. This shutdown was clean. Commands had been rerouted through legitimate channels, altered by someone who understood Valari systems perfectly. Someone inside. Threx's name appeared quietly in the data, buried but undeniable. The council erupted when confronted. Some denied it. Others demanded immediate punishment. Queen Zyra raised her voice, calm but absolute. "Enough. You endangered our people. You will answer for that." Power was no longer absolute, it was accountable. The galaxy noticed again. Rival fleets withdrew, confused by the lack of aggression. They had expected fire. They received stability. In the quiet aftermath, Queen Zyra and Elias stood together on a high balcony overlooking the capital city. Lights stretched endlessly, a living world at peace for now. "You could have demanded his end," she said. "That would have proven his point," Elias replied. "Fear only feeds itself." "From you. You're changing everything," the message said. Elias looked at Queen Zyra standing beside him and replied simply, "So are we." And beneath it, respect. The change did not arrive with explosions or threats. It arrived with choices. Across the galaxy, systems adjusted their expectations of the Valari dominion. Where once they expected rigid commands and sharp responses, they now found conversations. Agreements were not enforced by fear alone, but by shared interest. It unsettled many powers who relied on old patterns. At the center of it all stood a human who had never planned to rule anything. Elias Carter spent his days moving between council chambers, engineering halls, and quiet meetings with visiting envoys. He listened more than he spoke. When he did speak, he used simple words. He avoided grand promises. That made him difficult to manipulate. Queen Zyra watched the effects carefully. Her people still bowed, still followed tradition, but they also began to ask questions. Soldiers offered suggestions. Engineers proposed improvements without waiting for permission. The Dominion did not lose discipline. It gained initiative. Not everyone approved. A coalition of older empires, ones that had ruled through dominance for centuries, began private talks. They called themselves the Conquered of Stability. Their concern was not the Valari throne alone. It was the idea spreading behind it. Humans, too adaptable, too influential, too hard to predict. A formal summit was announced. Neutral ground, peaceful intent. Invitations extended to the Valari Dominion and to humanity as an equal party. The message was polite. The pressure beneath it was not. Queen Zyra read the invitation in silence. Elia stood beside her, arms folded loosely. "They want to define the future," she said. "They want to control it," Elias replied. "Those aren't the same thing." Requests for human mediators were growing. Humanity was stepping into a role it had never expected. At the summit hall, ancient and vast, the conquered representatives waited. Their forms were imposing, their voices smooth. They spoke of balance, of order, of concern. One speaker addressed Elias directly. "Human influence grows too fast," the alien said calmly. "It destabilizes established systems. Restrictions on human advisory roles, clear borders on influence, rules designed to freeze the galaxy into a comfortable shape." Elias listened, then stepped forward. "You're afraid," he said simply, "not of us, of losing relevance. We expand by connecting." In the weeks that followed, something quiet and powerful happened. Systems began choosing, not sides but methods. Some adopted human-style cooperation models, others held to tradition. The galaxy diversified instead of dividing. Queen Zyra addressed her people soon after. She stood before the Valari assembly, her voice steady. "Our strength was once fear," she said. "Now it is trust. This does not weaken us, it ensures we endure." "You could leave," she said. "Return to your people." The final challenge came not from enemies but from within. A proposal reached the Valari Council to formalize Elias' authority, not as consort, not as symbol, as co-regent. The room was tense. Elias spoke first. "I don't want a crown. The human speaks truth. Power shared is power stabilized." Still walked among soldiers and workers without ceremony. That consistency became his greatest strength. Years passed. The Valari Dominion did not fall. It thrived. Humanity was no longer the youngest voice in the room. It was the one others turned to when things became complicated. And at the heart of it all stood a marriage that had begun with refusal. Elias and Queen Zyra never pretended to be perfect. They disagreed. They argued. They learned. Their bond was not built on tradition but on trust tested daily. One quiet evening, as stars reflected off the palace glass, Queen Zyra asked a simple question. "Do humans still fear the unknown?" It's a warning label. I didn't plan to get married, especially not to an alien queen. Sci-Fi story.